being a human lightning rod to how to. So just to review this, I worked for a guy who was administrator of NASA, who was as volatile as Trump. And he would explode at people spontaneously. We'd be walking down a corridor, and someone that he perceived was trying to do something to him, whether it was real or not, he would explode. So when I got the job, I knew him from TRW. I'd worked with him. I was his customer, which was a very, very different relationship with him. But I was the only person in headquarters that had a relationship with him before he came, and also people around him. So I called up a guy at the TRW, Gordy Williams, who was a person I trusted. And I said, tell me about what I can do with working with Dan. And he said, the problem you're going to have with Dan is that he's going to accomplish some crazy idea. He's going to drive the agency into the wall. And the best thing you can do is tell him when he's got a stupid idea. So I reflected on this and thought, he's gonna rage at me. I can't, can I do this? Yeah, I can do this, but I've got to prepare myself for it. So when we went to staff meetings, I would sit next to him, which was not unreasonable. And it was about a dozen people in the room, all the heads of the various parts of NASA. And he'd say something about every week, something that was just really nutcase stuff. So I would get ready for this and I would ground my feet to the floor. So it's about managing your state of energy and being in complete calm. I learned this from a workshop I did at Esalen, a half-day workshop, where we mimicked getting angry at each other and doing our fists without hitting each other. And what became apparent is that if you engage in the battle, you increase the energy. If you can simply remain calm, you drain it. And I did this, the best learning is experiential. And I did this in this workshop. I practiced this with someone I didn't know, just was there. And it worked. So then what I would do is I would sit there and wait. And so the two things that most important is to be in the common name for it is a centered state, to be as calm as you can be. And the way I did it was just slowly belly breathing. And no one could tell I'm doing this, and grounded my feet to the floor, which kind of gave me a sense of connection to the earth, kind of a thing. And the metaphor is that when you have, our house has air terminals for lightning. And the way they work is that if the lightning hits, it goes straight into these copper rods in the ground. So it does no damage. So you got to be centered and grounded. Then I would say something not particularly, I wasn't focused on being polite to him, but it's something like, Dan, that's a really bad idea. And then I waited and the lightning strikes would come. And I would just sit there and just, in my mind, I would say, there's a big one, there's another one. And I would just sit there. It took about 5 or 10 seconds and he ran out of energy. And he would say, Charlie, you're absolutely right. So after these meetings, I would have to go take a walk. This was not without some damage, and I would not have done this except that he was the head of NASA. He had a lot of hierarchical power, and it was important. He had a person who he kept around that we tried to get rid of every way we could, but this person would amp him up about something. This person would come in and give him some nonsensical story. I've got painters in the house. There's something going on out there. I don't know what. Anyway, so that's the deal. And you can't do this unless you're really committed to doing it and care about the agency. And also I cared about the guy. I mean, I can't say that I liked him, but I can say I respected him. He was a smart guy, very intelligent guy, just misguided. So that's the story. And I did that for about 6 months and had enough. I couldn't do it anymore. So so that's the human lightning rod story.
Thank you. I appreciate you revisiting that. That's very
You know,
helpful.
And you got to prepare. You can't do this in real time. You can't, in the moment, if you haven't gotten ready for it, you won't be able to do it. Okay. Any more comments or questions? What about drama? What's your experience with drama? Any of you recognize when you get into this?
Yeah, I feel like both of us have been living in it
Yeah.
with our work lives. So
The challenge has certainly presented itself.
I'll tell you, for me, I'm not prone to victim much. I don't do that. I'm prone to blamer. I'm prone to getting angry when someone disservices me or does something. I'm still mad at my ex for 25 years ago for not letting my daughter get the schooling she needed for her mental illness. I'm still mad about that 25 years later. And what I realize is when I sit back and let myself reflect on it, it's actually self-anger. Blaming is all self-anger. So the truth of the matter is I'm mad at myself. I didn't do more about it. And we had a meeting with the experts and we sat there and they said, this is what she's got to do. Got to go away to this boarding school. I had money for it, so I'd save money for college. And my ex said, no, she's not going. And they just said, if she doesn't agree, there's nothing we can do. And I should have done more. So whenever you find yourself in blamer, look for what you're angry about in yourself. That's where the root always is. The rationalizer, which is saying it doesn't matter when it does, I don't do that a lot. And the rescuer, I don't think I'm prone to that. That's the diagonal for me. I'm much more dispassionate about people and what they're doing, their problems. I don't try and save them. Some of you do, I know, but that's your deal. So I think the idea of naming, so it's really powerful when you can name something, and the idea of being able to name the drama states is very helpful. And we're going to have very specific strategies when you can name it, how to get out of it. The issue is not that you never go in it. The issue is that you detect it and get out of it.
Right.
It's the same thing with agreements. The issue is not that you never break them, it's that you renegotiate them before you break them to maintain your integrity.
Charlie, may I make a quick comment?
Sure.
So I found myself thinking a lot, going back maybe a couple sessions, which is related to what you just mentioning. I remember the perfect example you used in your class, which I really appreciate, when you described the necessity for any humans need to be included.
Yeah.
And the and I found myself almost in a similar circumstances when the neighborly I don't know community I don't want to discuss it again, to really describe it again, but basically the same thing. When invitation was not sent to you,
Yeah.
even though you would never attend and never plan to attend, never expected to attend. So it's just very interesting thing, and that can easily bring you, being excluded can really be sort of a reason why you can really find yourself in a state of drama. If you
yeah, that's another one. Yep. And what you're going to do there is probably blame somebody. I would, or you might be more inclined. Greens are more inclined toward victim than blues are.
yeah,
You might be inclined to get into ain't it awful, or something like that.
the most important thing to have the tools to get out of that.
Yeah, I'm going to show you very specifically how to do that. It's back to, I think you may notice that one thing I like about this builds on every piece that went before, just like math does, you know. Calculus builds on trigonometry and algebra and so forth. So we're building always on AMBR. The mindset here is so crucial. And the idea that you can change your mindset by changing your thoughts.
Yep.
So that's the same thing we're going to do with how to deal with drama, is to detect it, change the storyline that's powering it, and that'll change your emotions. Good?
Yeah, good. All good. Thank you, Charlie.
Darinka, good to go?
Yes, I am. Sorry, I had a phone call, so I went on mute just to
Okay.
settle that for 5 seconds, right?
Nico, good to go?
Yep.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So we closed the session out, I think, with this life habituated drama piece with the movie. I don't know why is this coming up on a different screen now? Hang on. Let's see. It's always something, isn't it?
That's right.
Okay.
Oh boy.
So, yeah, we did the movie with It'll Always Be Something With You, isn't it, Joe? So I think the first thing you ask yourself is, do I want more of this? I got this from one of my coaches some years ago that said whenever she's fighting with her husband, the question is, do I want more of this or not? And that's what frees it up. And hopefully you don't. And notice, name, and breathe into your feelings. The strategy of the breathing to mitigate feelings is one that I'm quite fond of. The belly breathing, we practice that. Notice, name, and then shift your power robbing storylines. So I had a very close client I worked with from my first client, actually, the accounting firm. And the lady that I was working with was an attractive, I want to say 45-year-old tall blonde lady. I was very fond of her. And her core problem was that she was habituated to victim. And I helped her get out of this. So so the idea is you turn complaints into requests. And one day she's complaining about the headquarters office is asking them for this onerous amount of data. You may think we call this the data dog. The Orange Culture does this. And they were frustrated to have to provide it over and over and over. So I said, we need to make a 4D request. You start with appreciation. So I drafted a letter for her, working with her secretary. We appreciate that you do an excellent job managing the overall company, and we appreciate that you need good data to do it. That met the appreciation need, the lower level. Move up to the next inclusion. We want to work with you to find a better way to do this that will meet your needs and ours and provide more efficiency. We met the inclusion piece. The vision. I think we can find a way to probably save $50,000 a year on our end and yours too. And since we're both partners, profits the company makes go directly into our pocket. So we've met the vision. And now you make the request. I'd like to send 3 people to New York to work with your people for a couple of days and come up with a better way to do this. So I wrote the letter, I had drafted it up, and she and I met in a nice restaurant in Boulder for breakfast. I put it on the table for her to sign it. He picks up the pen and puts it down, says, I'm not going to sign it, they'll never change. And I said, do you see where you are? You're back in the red storyline of victim. So how about try this? If we don't send the letter, we'll never know. So I can do that. So she signed the letter. So this is about identifying these power robbing storylines. The victim is the case of chosen helplessness. Your power robbing storylines, get rid of them and replace them with greens, which are going to be always response able, that is able to respond. By the way, I don't think light complaining is a problem. The real issue with complaining is whether or not it takes you into victim. So I used to have a business partner. I'd call him up and complain about somebody or something. To me, it's kind of like complaining to the bartender. It doesn't matter if you go to someone and say, I'm just tired of this blah, 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 blah. As long as it's humorous and not taking you into a victim, that's the issue with it. So the diagnostic is, do you feel lousy? This I think is fantastic. It's a very simple thing to do. How are you feeling? You feel lousy, you're in a drama state, and check the storyline. And if it's some variation of it's hopeless, there's nothing I can do, that tells you you're in victim. That's the diagnostic. Now you, now you need to shift to, I'll turn my complaints into 4D requests to support action. What will happen then is you'll feel good. So I take the things that I had the group put on the flip chart and pick a few of these and practice turning these into 4D requests. So I'd ask you to do this in your workbook later, and we'll get reports next week. But basically what you do is you do the standard stuff: appreciate, shared interest, improve collaboration, integrity, unfortunate realities, outcomes you're committed to, and then make requests. So we're going to ask you to do this next week, to report out on something where you did a 4D request. The hero rescuer mindset is driven by love group yearning for approval and inclusion. And what happens here is that when someone asks you to do something and you're in this emotional field with them, you're going to want to do it. And so that desire is going to override the logic of that you shouldn't do it. And so you take on work you shouldn't, end up exhausted. I should not have done it, regret it. You might then go to blamer. You might blame the person who asked you to do the work. When you're attracted to drama, you tend to do a lot of it. So why would anybody do this? This makes no sense, right? Well, the benefit is you get to feel liked and needed. That feels good to you if it's a core deep need, particularly yellows. Avoid having to say no, which can be really uncomfortable. And there's plenty of manipulators around who will overtax you willingly. The cost, exhausted, no responsibility, no ability to respond, have inappropriate relationships with people, and you feel used by others. I should have paused for a little comment on this. Anybody prone to this? Overtaking on things they shouldn't because of needs to feel included? Yeah, I see some smiles. Okay.
Yeah, I'm just going through a situation right now where I'm watching somebody go through the manipulation and I'm watching their tactics. I've seen
okay.
Which is interesting to give names to it.
Good. So same thing. Do I want more of this? Hopefully not. So I think that there's no way in that social field that you can say no. So I think the right thing to do is just buy a little time and just say, let me think about this. I'll get back to you soon, and escape the social field. Get away from them personally. Get a little more objective. And then say no 4-dimensionally. So appreciation and inclusion are the WD-40 of relationships. So the same thing, appreciate the person or the situation, address the shared interests, same stuff over and over. And if you can put a little bit of a friendly spin on this, it's going to be easier for you and easier for them to hear it. Ask for it. So here's a way that you could do it with a boss who's asking you to do something that you shouldn't do. Start with, I really appreciate working for you and that you need for this work to get done. Bing, we notched the first core need. I want to collaborate with you to find the best way to get this work done. Feel included. The unfortunate reality is that I'm in overload and cannot possibly do more. Unfortunate reality. Might go back and emphasize integrity, and I'll keep my agreements with you and my family as I'm committed to my integrity. Let me be running a red storyline about you. You're not going to do what you say, so wrap that up. Then you might say, I'm 100% committed to finding a way to expeditiously complete this work. And I believe it's in both of our interests to get this done quickly and efficiently. You've addressed shared interests. Check your storyline and emotions, confirming you're free of drama. May I contact my friend who can help and request a bid? So this is real work stuff. This came out of the fact that people in workshops telling me that they have this problem. And so this is it. So basically what you want to do with this is you want to avoid power struggles. Do you remember Charlie's 2 rules? Rule number 1, avoid power struggles. Rule number 2, don't power struggle if you haven't got the power. Is it worthwhile to power struggle with the boss? No. So feel lousy? Run, I'll turn my 40 complaints into requests. If you're in the victim down here, I shouldn't. If the storyline is I shouldn't, but I feel I must do it. If that's what you're experiencing, the diagnosis is you're in rescuer. The way you escape is I'll say no 4-dimensionally to preserve my relationship and avoid overload. That will restore good feelings and energize you. We okay? Next one was the rationalizer. So this comes out of scared group, anxious, or it can be mad, frustrated. And you say, it doesn't really matter when it actually does. When I worked for Frank Martin as his deputy, he would say this all the time, and I didn't know what was going on. I couldn't name this as a drama state. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter. By the way, there's lots of music written about scared group, like Don't Be Afraid of the Dark, Robert Cray. Here's the problem with it. When you try and overcome a emotion with a thought, it doesn't work, it returns. So my favorite story about this is some years ago, I was doing workshops for Ball Aerospace. And this was a pretty good deal for me because they're right here in Boulder. I knew the senior managers. And every year, what they would do is they would look at smiley sheet scores. I think you probably know what those are. Those are the things you fill out at the end of a workshop. The problem is they may have more to do with the food or the room than you, but they would do them every year. And I had to score better than anybody else to get renewed the following year. And my smiley sheet scores in those days were typically 8 plus. Toward the end of 4D, I was getting 9.8 or 10s, but this was at the start. And that was better than other consultants. They told me other people were on about 6 on this scale. And so I had a friend at the time I was going cross-country skiing with a lot. He and I would go up to a local ski area, Eldora, most weeks in the winter. And it's about a 45-minute drive. So he and I would be in the car talking. And the guy was obviously good technically, but he had major human relationship problems. He was a 1D blue. So I didn't know to name him as that then, or I would have stayed away from this. Anyway, so I'm doing these workshops, and I went to the head of HR and said, Doug, can Jack come to my next workshop? He says, no, Jack's not high enough in the management level. We're only doing the top people in your workshops. And I said, well, because you have hardware and test, the engineers, cognizant engineers go over there and sit with the hardware while this is going on so they can keep an eye on it. So there's always 2 or 3 empty seats. He said, oh, sure, okay, you're right, there's always a couple empty seats, we'll just put Jack in. So Jack comes to the workshop and and he doesn't say much. I don't know what's going on with him, and I'm not focused much on him. I'm focused on delivering the workshop. Then the smiley sheets are all filled out at the end of the day it's a Ball Aerospace farm. And so I'm workshop ends and they're in a stack there. So I open them up and look, and the scores 9, 10, 8, 10, 9, 8, 10, 10, 8, 2. 2? Who the hell gave me a 2? It's my friend Jack. So I rationalized it away and said, it doesn't matter. You're going to average over 25 people. I mean, one score, it doesn't matter. What, I don't care. It just doesn't make any difference. So I get in the car and I'm driving home, which was not far away. It was real close. And I feel this kind of uncomfortable feeling in my chest. That's where anxiety goes. And I said, what is that about? I said, oh, that son of a bitch Jack and that score of 2 after I did him a favor. But it doesn't matter. I don't care. I mean, you average over 30 people, it doesn't matter. Boy, it lasted about 30 seconds. Boom, it's back. So I walk into the house, I sit down, take a few breaths. Okay, I called Doug. And I said, he was still there. He the end of his day. Picked up the phone, he laughed and said, I know what you're calling about. It's Jack, don't worry. I threw it in the trash. Don't worry about it. So the point is that rather than try and repress this, take action, be responsible, and go address it. So that's how that dynamic works. Why would anybody do this? Well, you get to repress an uncomfortable feeling. If you're intellectual, it feels good and gets your difficulties to go away. The cons, it's exhausting, no ability to respond. The relief is temporary and energy gets stuck up in your head rather than in your body. Feelings that are buried alive, stay alive. So, feel lousy. Check the storyline. If it's some version of it really doesn't matter, when in fact it does, you diagnose that as rationalizer. I'll acknowledge that it does matter so I can address the issue. And you feel good and enlivened. Comments or questions? This makes sense?
So this felt very similar to the Hero Rescuer. How is it different, or did I miss something?
Because the rescuer comes out of needs to be liked.
You
So
know,
each of these has a basis in it. The victim comes out of needs to live deep values and care about people. And so that drives that. The rescuer driven by needs to be liked. The rationalizer is driven by needs for intellectual solutions. You're solving an emotional problem with an intellectual remedy. So it doesn't work. The reason it doesn't work is it's a fight between your baby blanket size cerebral cortex and your body. In the somatic psychology world, emotions are body sensations. So your body is so much more massive and potent than this little baby blanket cerebral cortex. The intellectual solution cannot override an emotion.
got it.
That makes sense?
Yeah, thank you. That was
These all stem from these deep needs. Everything comes back to F equals ma in physics, and everything comes back to the needs hierarchy in this work. And now we need to get on our feet. Come in.
Finish?
No, the break time.
Oh, break time. He want to show you the
Oh,
thing, but
too late. He was going.
no, he's not.
Yeah, I gotta step out for a second. deal with the painter. You guys chat with yourselves for a minute, please.
So, but I'm so careless, wait, which there, make them. When you see, I can see, and then, what we told them. Where we are.
I guess this is pretty natural.
How's everybody doing today?
Very
Good.
good. Very good.
Looks like it's cool where Nico is. Had a lovely sweater on.
Yeah. It's probably the power issue. The electric power is in and out.
Yeah.
Let's see, they're closer to winter, aren't they?
Yep. Yeah, they're gonna
Yeah.
be their winter solstice.
Hmm.
We are rapidly approaching our summer solstice. I think it's today or tomorrow, right?
Tomorrow,
Well,
it should be tomorrow.
yeah, I haven't. It's always like right around the 21st.
Yep. Well, the longest day.
Oh. I know I'm trying to spend the whole day outside.
Yeah.
Nico, I like your sweatshirt. Or whatever that is. Sweatshirt underneath your jacket there.
You're on mute.
What did you notice?
I just like the
Yeah.
collar. It's like
Yeah, it's the Princeton one.
oh, there you go.
Princeton
Very nice.
Tigers.
Very nice.
We were in the office yesterday for the leadership summit. Well, not even in the office. We were in another place altogether, 100-something managers, and it was quite something. We were all joking about. Well, no one is going to say to someone you're on mute.
Yeah.
It just gets so different.
Yeah, have any of you seen those videos where people are mimicking video conferences, but in live in person? So like all of a sudden there's a person that's in the meeting, but all of a sudden they're outside the door because they dropped their call dropped. And so then they're trying to get in, and then there's the person literally sitting at the table and nobody can hear them. They're like, you're on mute. And all of a sudden you can hear them. They're pretty funny. It's pretty well done, at least the one that I saw.
Yeah, but it's I mean, it does pose like when you listen to all of this, and I mean, when you learn about communication, and they say that really the smallest part of communication is the words that we say. It's our actions, the face expression, everything.
Right.
It's just like mind-boggling. How are we doing it online? How things haven't fallen apart completely. It's just like, I mean, couple of times I held meetings with the staff, and then they're all off camera.
Right.
It's really hard.
Oh,
Yep.
Charlie is back.
I'm back.
Charlie's back.
Stop talking about him.
So, yeah. This makes sense, folks?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, proceed here.
Thank you.
This is so interesting.
Okay, the blamer is the most interesting one for me, and it's the one I'm prone to. And the way I most commonly experience it is when somebody does something in traffic that endangers my life.
Or not.
And my first reaction is to open the glove box and take a pistol out and shoot them. What I've actually wanted was an auto accessory with a big iron fist in the back of my car that come out and punch their car to shreds. But instead, I run the storyline: is this the hill you want to die on? And when the answer to that is quite obviously no, I just stop in my tracks and don't do anything. Breathe. So again, I'm always enjoying the fact these are old questions, and this goes back to Aristotle. Anyone can become angry. That is easy. But to become angry with the right person to the right degree at the right time for the right reason and in the right way This is not easy. So
Yeah,
that-
that's right.
Hmm?
That's correct.
Yeah. So when I was back at the university, I read this book called A Trusting Heart. And this got my attention. He said those with high scores on a test of hostility were 7 times as likely to have died by the age of 50 as those with lower scores. This is deadly, folks. Anger is more prone to early death than smoking plus high blood pressure and arteriosclerosis. So here's what's interesting. It's scared or fear of being blamed is what excites this. And the storyline that you run is this mess is not my fault, when in fact it is. What's happening here is that you're feeling uncomfortable with the emotion of being scared or afraid. It's uncomfortable. And anger is used as a cover-up emotion. Anger is actually quite energizing, and it represses the emotion that you don't want to feel. You run the storyline, it's your fault, when it's not their fault. The benefit, you avoid feeling your fear. You get a big adrenaline hit, and you feel righteous. The cost, you're angry, no responsibility. So this is always about being able to respond to what's happening. This makes gigantic emotional side bank account withdrawals, and it'll kill you. So this is a very popular writer, Brene Brown. Gonna do a little video telling she's a habituated blamer. She's gonna talk about being in the bathroom and the kitchen in the morning, the full cup of coffee, and drops it on the floor, splashes all over her, and the first thing she thinks is, "Damn you, Steve, who isn't even there." And you'll see that what happened was Steve went out to play water polo, came in late. Therefore, she had the second cup of coffee she wasn't going to otherwise have. Blame is simply the discharging of anger and pain. So how many of you go to whose fault is it? Blaming has an inverse relationship with accountability, a vulnerable process. So I think if you're going to do just 2 things, it's to live with appreciation and accountability. And accountability is a personal choice. Once you're deciding you're accountable, if it doesn't work out, you're going to be vulnerable.
How many of you are blamers? How many of you, when something goes wrong, the first thing you want to know is whose fault it is? Hi, my name is Brene. I'm a blamer. Let me just tell you this quick story. So this is a couple years ago when I first realized the magnitude to which I blame. I'm in my house. I have on white slacks and a pink sweater set, and I'm drinking a cup of coffee in my kitchen. It's a full cup of coffee. I drop it on the tile floor. It goes into a million pieces, splashes up all over me. And the first, a millisecond after it hit the floor, right out of my mouth is this: "Damn you, Steve." Who's my husband? Because let me tell you how fast this works for me. So Steve plays water polo with a group of friends. And the night before, he went to go play water polo. And I said, "Hey, make sure you come back at 10, because I can never fall asleep until you're home." And he got back like at 10:30. And so I went to bed a little bit later than I thought. Ergo, my second cup of coffee that I probably would not be having had he come home when we discussed. Therefore, and so the rest of that story is I'm cleaning up the kitchen. Steve calls, caller ID. I'm like, "Hey." He's like, "Hey, what's going on, babe?" What's going on? So I'll tell you exactly what's going on. I'm cleaning up the coffee that spilled all, like dial tone. Because he knows. How many of you go to that place when something bad happens, the first thing you want to know is whose fault is it? I'd rather it be my fault than no one's fault. Because why? Why? Because it gives us some semblance of control. But here, if you enjoy blaming, this is where you should stick your fingers in your ear and do the na thing, because I'm getting ready to ruin it for you. Because here's what we know from the research. Blame is simply the discharging of discomfort and pain. It has an inverse relationship with accountability. Accountability, by definition, is a vulnerable process. It means me calling you and saying, hey, my feelings were really hurt about this, and talking. It's not blaming. Blaming is simply a way that we discharge anger. People who blame a lot seldom have the tenacity and grit to actually hold people accountable, because we expend all of our energy raging for 15 seconds and figuring out whose fault something is. And blaming is very corrosive in relationships, and it's one of the reasons we miss our opportunities for empathy. Because when something happens and we're hearing a story, we're not really listening. We're in the place where I was, making the connections as quickly as we can about whose fault something was.
So what's interesting is your assignment of blame is both certain and wrong. I want to go back to this Dunning-Kruger effect. What's happening here is people don't understand this. So without any knowledge or depth of understanding into this particular state of being, they have this total lack of knowledge or competence to deal with it, and very high certainty. Freud said blamer is self-anger directed outward. You lose empathy and accountability, the two most important single things I think that exist. So what I do in the workshops, and let's do it here, put your hand in the blamer configuration, finger out, okay? Yeah. Like this. And I want you to point it, shake it at an imaginary person or someone there and say, it's your fault. It's your fault, Tanya. It's your fault, Nat. Come on, let's do it. It's your fault, Larissa.
It's your fault.
It's your fault, Nico. It's your fault, Dorinka. It's your fault. Come on, let's do it. Boom.
Tanya just keeps pointing at me.
So what you're going to notice from that, and this is really apparent in workshops, is that the level of energy in the room skyrockets. Anybody that was napping off is now fully alert. And the reason is because we've injected ourselves with adrenaline. And some people believe adrenaline addiction is the biggest addiction in the country. What I want you to notice, though, in that configuration, how many fingers are pointed back at you? This is quite appropriate. 3 fingers, right? Majority. So put your hand in the curiosity configuration. That's all your fingers together. Make the curiosity sound. I wonder what my role was in creating the mess. I wonder what my role was in creating the mess. Because you're always going to have one. That's the nature of this condition. So I sometimes, again, this body psychology thing, I demonstrate this with motion. So I was so habituated to this when I started this work that actually I had people have me walk back and forth between 2 spaces in the room. And so in the workshops, I'll start talking and I'll ask the class to move me collectively, help me get out of blamer by whenever I'm blaming and complaining, to put me in one space. And then whenever I'm wondering about my role, to put me in the other. And I'll tell a little story about this. So where we live is 5 miles outside of Boulder city limits, and it's a 60-mile-an-hour 2-lane road. And I'm driving along, and these goddamn people pull out right in front of me. So where should I go? Over to the red, okay? These people drive like idiots. I don't know how they ever got a driver's license. Damn, this just frosted me. They pulled right in front of me. Wait a minute, I'm in blamer now. I'm getting angry. I must have a role. So let me go to the other side over here and see if I can figure it out. So what am I doing here? So I'm driving along and the jerks pull out right in front of me. God damn it, you can't hardly drive down the road without these idiots endangering your life. So I move back over here, go over there, bitch and moan for a while, bitch, moan and complain, and say, wait a minute, Charlie, you're in blamer. I come back over here and say, wait a minute, I think I'm getting something here. When I see a car up there that's about to pull out, I speed up trying to intimidate them not to do it. Oh, I got it. So I'm going up to like 65, 70 miles an hour. And they can't tell that I was going faster because they're looking straight down the road at me. I'm creating this mess. The solution to this is just don't ever drive above 60. And if you see a car up there, slow down to 55. So if they do pull out in front of you, there's no emergency. So that's how it works. Everybody understand this?
Yep.
And it's not easy, okay?
Matt,
So
you understand this.
I was gonna say understanding versus executing are two different things.
that's right. Exactly. So people in workshops, and what do I do when someone's blaming me? I thought that's a good thing, so I made a slide about it. What's your first impulse? You want to give it back, don't you? Unfortunately, that this is germane to the conversation we had about the human lightning rod. That's going to further energize their anger. And unless you can overwhelm them, and so I had a guy in a workshop, actually was in Siberia, owned a big company. He said, no, when someone does that, I just go smack shot them. And I said, well, you can do that, but let me tell you something, you probably irreparably damage the relationship if you use that power. So do that knowingly that that person probably going to quit your company if they can. Instead, better to process it four-dimensionally. Appreciate their situation. You're not going to be able to appreciate them if you're angry at them and they're angry at you. Speak to shared interests, the same formula, same simple stuff. So feel lousy, check out the storyline. If it's something like it's your fault and I'm really, really angry with you, you're in blamer state. That's the diagnosis. Shift the storyline. I'll find my role in creating the mess because you always have one. Always, always. So what's interesting is that when I was in China, I really enjoyed the place and the workshops, but they would ask me to demonstrate things. They were skeptical. They're very intellectually skeptical people. And so what I would do is I would bring a person up that had some problem and put them on the stage, and I'd say, just so you know, when you're up here, I'm going to strip you naked before we're through. Just make sure you're up for it. And with the translator, they'd say, okay, everything's being translated, which was difficult for me because I got to remember the English with the pause in there. And they would start talking about what's going on in their company. And very quickly, it would come to blaming somebody, blaming the boss, blaming a coworker, blaming this. And I would push and push and push until finally we found their role and they admitted it. And I asked them how they felt. They say they feel embarrassed, humiliated, sorry. But over and over and over, I did this in real time. And sure enough, they've got a role. It might take me 20 minutes to pull that tooth, but I would get it. And just keep probing. It's always there. If you're in blamer, there's always something that you've done yourself that you don't want to be blamed by other people for. And back to feeling good. So my proposal team asked them any drama states you have, they said no, none. And I said, that's bullshit. I'm in the plant and I hear you blaming the customer all the time. And we established up here with the red storylines, you're in victim, so you're in the two most common drama states continuously. Can you agree until this proposal comes out that you'll stop blaming the customer? Can you do that? And they said they could. I don't know they did or not. So here's the problem with the drama states. The problem is what it does to your energy. The drama state of victim is chosen helplessness. You have no energy to do anything. The rescuer becomes exhausted. They can't function because they're doing things they shouldn't do. The rationalizer gets distracted by this constant recycling, using energy to recycle the storyline, to repress the emotion round and around. And the blamer is deadly. It will kill you. As simple as this, and that you're right, execution is different, but pay attention to how you're feeling. This just sort of, this doesn't take any effort. Just if you don't feel good, learn to notice that. And if you feel good most of the time, you will definitely know, wait a minute, I'm feeling lousy. That's the test here. You diagnose the storyline, find the red storyline. It's not that hard to do. Get help if necessary, a friend, or I'll do this with you if you want. And what you want to do is sustain your ability to respond. You have to exit the drama state to do that. How do we do here? Good?
Yeah, we're doing good. The only question that I still have, how to get out of the rescuer mode? Because
So I think, Larissa, I had a co-worker, 4D workshop co-worker. This was the bane of her life. That she was a green, by the way, but she could not say no. And so her life burden was stuff that she shouldn't be doing. Always it would be someone, calls her up and says, can you, she did therapy at a prison. Someone asked her, could you do some therapy at a prison?
oh my.
Sure, so she couldn't say no. Can you chair the fundraiser for the neighborhood party? Yeah. So I think what she described was the time. But I think what you have to do, and she got this working with me, you have to get out of the social field before you can make a rational decision. You got to hang up the phone. You got to get off of Zoom. As long as, or the person's in person, it's even worse. You got to just say, give me a little time to reflect on that. And then you got to get out of that field. That social field is just like any other physical field, like a magnet has no option in a strong magnetic field but to align. Just nothing else going to work. So there's no answer except to get out of that field, get away from them, then build some thoughtfulness, rigor, and say no four-dimensionally. I think the four-dimensional request, and by the way, it doesn't have to be exactly in that order. I just think that authentic appreciation is like a miracle. I mean, there's nothing to match it. And again, appreciate the person or the circumstance. So it may be that, if there's an element of conflict in it. If so, just think of the example of Bill Clinton talking to the Republican Congress that was impeaching him, and he appreciated the problems the country's dealing with. So, and then see if you can find an inclusion thing that says, I'll help you find another solution to this. I'll work with you on this. The unfortunate reality is you just can't take on another thing, and you can't take on another thing and do it well. And then make a request and say, how about, you go look elsewhere or get somebody else to do it? Because if you give it in that moment, you're gonna regret it later.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Charlie.
You think that'll work for you?
Yeah, I think I hope it will work. It should work. I find myself constantly on a rescue, maybe because I am green. I think I am a very deep green.
You are.
So
You're very prone to that.
yeah. So
I mean, it even shows up in the phone calls. You will call on people to speak when I'm running the meeting because you think they've been left out.
yeah. So I guess that's the price of being deep green.
By the way, that kind of thing doesn't hurt anything. It's just when you take on work you shouldn't do. And the problem is you just get tired. I mean, you get bogged down in stuff and you don't have any time for, what's important. It's the tyranny of what's urgent versus what's important.
Yeah, that's right. Thank you, Charlie.
Yeah.
And it's I think for me the biggest thing is that get out of the social context.
Yeah.
Mm,
So just be out of the pressure of the moment to say yes, I'll do it for you.
mm.
In that moment, it feels great.
Yep. That's right. That's exactly it. That's exactly it, Irinka. You got
But
it.
then
You got to buy some time. You don't have to say no. Just say, you can say no later. After you can say, give me a little time to think about this. I don't think anyone can ever object to that. Rarely. And then you sit down and decide if it's really important relationship, you might want to sit down and sketch out a 4-dimensional decline. And
Yeah,
they won't know you're doing that. It will, it'll just sound to them like what you're doing is you're meeting the relational need without taking on the work. That's what you're doing.
yeah. All right, thank you, Charlie. Sorry if I took too much of the time out of the class asking questions.
So Nat or Tanya, you get some takeaways here?
A lot.
Yes.
I think we're both like strategizing how we're going to be leveraging this as soon as 3 minutes from now. So no, this was really powerful, and I think it's finally starting to kind of click for me. Holistically, maybe it's just the repetitiveness of it all is finally starting to hit home for me. But yeah, the mental model is beginning to take shape. So I'm
Good.
excited to apply.
Nico, you like this module?
Yeah. Sorry, there was just a interruption here with somebody that just came to deliver something. So I missed some of the comments now. But powerful. I've been working with this for many years, and it's always a learning experience. I will always sit in whenever there's model or the whole play between victim, rescuer, etc., and pursuer, and so on comes to mind, or in the discussion. But the bottom line is emotional maturity, emotional intelligence. It really asks a lot of different things to find your role, your identity, and your contribution. I mean, by nature, I will never look for any conflict situations on, but I don't care for a good fight as well. So, and then I can really live up to my scorpion nature, I can sting like a bee or sting like a scorpion. Yeah, it's always a learning experience, and I can really also almost identify all roles and all identities, in different phases of my life as well. So it's there, it's present in our lives, and it's awareness. It's by talking, discussing, reading about it. And when you self-reflect, that you're really working on your own identity. So this was very stimulating. Thank you so much, Charlie.
10 o'clock, end on time.
Thank you very
all.
much.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Charlie. Thank you all.
See you
Thank
next
you,
week.
Charlie. Thank you.
See you
everyone.
next
Bye-bye.
time.
Everybody.
Bye.
You
See you next
guys.
week.